Well, let's talk about the Trump case.
Let's talk about the Trump case.
So one of the things that I talked to Drew Finling about, now Drew was representing Trump at one point.
And let me say, just for the record, listeners and watchers, the idea that he got Drew Finling to talk to him when I can't is a reason to keep watching DJ Vlad. Like, madness.
What I mentioned to Drew, like I said, he was on the case, he was representing Trump. At one point, they parted ways. I tried to get him to say why. He wouldn't tell me. He said it was mutual. Why did he end up leaving your law firm and going with Steve instead?
Yeah, I'm not going to really go there. I know there are articles written about it. I know Rolling Stone wrote about it, and I'll let the journalists do their explanation.
We've heard some of the reasons why.
What are the reasons why?
Trump's not listening to him.
Uh-huh.
And Drew Finling is not a man who is not going to work for a guy who doesn't listen to him. He doesn't have to. Drew doesn't need Trump.
Right. Yeah, Drew is good. I think I remember I just interviewed Boosie, who, Drew has been his lawyer. In fact, Boosie was the one that recommended that Drew Finling represent Lucci. He connected those two.
Yeah.
And I remember I asked him, how much does it cost to get Drew on your case? And he said, for about a gun charge, about $100,000. For a serious case, about $300,000. So Drew charges an arm and a leg. Now he's worth it.
Yeah. I just hope he got paid up front.
Yeah. Yeah, he gets paid up front.
Yeah, because Trump is a record.
Has a record of not paying.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, and we talked about how Fani Willis was using the YSL case as essentially a training ground for the Trump RICO case.
Yep.
And then the Trump RICO case happened. So then in August 24, 2023, Trump gets indicted. He gets taken to the courthouse.
Yep.
And the famous mugshot comes out, which he then sold on T-shirts and made millions of dollars.
Yep.
Number one, were you surprised that he got arrested and he got a $200,000 bond, which of course he paid right away and he got out?
Of course. So I have an interesting sort of posture on all of this because of my own sort of involvement with the Trump case.
Okay.
So if I sound like a big, sort of circumspect in my comments, it's because I need to preserve what I'm saying for court.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a witness in the case.
Okay.
And let me spend a minute or two explaining that. On December 12th, 2020, as a journalist, I was writing for The Intercept. I went to the Georgia Capitol to go watch the electors. All of the electors for all the states gather on the 12th, they vote. The electors go on January 6th to go get counted. Now we know what happened on January 6th. Well, on January 12th, while I was there, I noticed an old friend who's a young Republican who would have been one of the Republican electors if Trump had won in Georgia, sort of blow by me without acknowledging my presence and go into a room. So I pulled out a camera, went live stream, walked into the room and asked what was going on. And they immediately sort of hustled me out and but they lied to me. They said it was an education meeting. And it turns out that I had just walked into the fake electors. I put up a tweet of the image from the live stream asking my friends to identify, and they identified them as folks who would have been Republican electors. About an hour and a half, 2 hours later, the Georgia GOP chairman comes out and explains that, yes, okay, we were doing an electoral vote like the Democrats were, but we need to preserve our legal case because we've got a legal case going and we needed to do this. I find out later that they were deliberately instructed to lie to the media about what they were doing, and that's what they did with me. And that turns out to be significant because it's the basis for the fake electors scheme and the election interference case for Trump. So 2 years ago, I was subpoenaed and I testified in front of the special purpose grand jury. And then about a week before Trump got indicted. The day Trump got indicted. I was called to testify to the grand jury. I didn't actually need to testify that day, but the day he was indicted, I was in court. Because I can still be called as a witness, I take some caution in what I say about how surprised I am that Donald Trump got indicted. I will say I am not surprised that Donald Trump got indicted. I think there's a body of evidence that's emerging that at least calls for a trial. And we'll see what happens.
Do you think that this trial is going to affect the election, meaning that will there be a conviction on any level before the election starts, which prevent him from running?
Maybe. So it depends on a lot of things.
Because the election is in November, right?
The election is in November.
It's now March. So what are we looking at? 8, 9 months?
Yeah. Fani Willis wants to get this started in another 6 weeks or so.
Okay.
Assuming she's still on the case. So this thing with Nathan Wade and the affair, has raised a question about whether or not she'll be allowed to continue prosecuting.
Right. Well, if she's not allowed to do it, they'll bring in someone else.
Yeah. The problem is who. So if she's lifted, then it goes to the Prosecutors Council of Georgia. And I'm mangling that. That's not the right name, but a guy named Pete Scandalakis is basically going to pick some prosecutor, could be from the Atlanta area, could be from the middle of nowhere. If he picks a hard right Republican, that guy might just drop the case entirely. More likely, they'll start to reinvestigate it from scratch. Because they have to discount everything Nathan Wade has done. And if that's the case, you don't see a case before November. The trial will not start before November.
Well, but if the trial, let's just say he gets elected, because at this point, he is clearly the Republican nominee.
He's almost.
He has blown Nikki Haley out of the water, even in her own home state.
He is almost certainly going to be the Republican
There is no
nominee.
chance. DeSantis has stepped down.
He could get hit by a bus.
He could.
But other than that,
for all intents and purposes, we're looking at him being the Republican nominee running against Biden. And I'll be honest, if I were to bet right now on March 2nd, 2024, who is going to get elected president, I would say it's Donald Trump.
I can't bet. I mean that literally. I am out of the prediction business about that. I don't know.
I have seen what happened. I remember what happened 8 years ago when he ran against Hillary Clinton. There really was not a lot of support for Hillary. There was a ton of support for Trump. Trump voters are still very gung-ho. They will bring all their friends to vote and so forth. Now, when Biden ran against him, people were really upset with Trump, and they were looking at Biden as Obama Part 2, and there's a lot of excitement, and people went out and voted. I voted for Biden. I've said this publicly before. My family all voted for Biden. We were happy when he won, but 4 years later, the economy has gone bad. Biden seems like he has one foot in the grave, and, Trump is still popular. And, I think there's a little bit of sympathy from the voters in terms of how many times he's getting charged and all of the pylons and everything else like that have been happening to him legally. I think to a certain degree, it's a little bit unfair. Now, is some of the stuff fair? Absolutely. But the amount of charges between the records at his house, and the RICO case here, and the New York case, and the defamation case, and $350 million for this, and $85 million for that, is just okay.
You are describing the reasons why I can't tell you what's going to happen in November, because I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know which of these things are going to blow up.
Yeah. Who knows?
Biden's got a bunch of stuff in his backfield too. I don't think it's the economy. I think it's more the thing that I think that's most likely to bite him in the butt is Gaza.
Well, there's that too.
Yeah. But it doesn't have to be the Georgia case. It could be like if he has a criminal conviction for many of these cases, there's a subset of otherwise Republican voters who will refuse to vote for him.
Well,
And
but
that
he
might
gets
be the
thrown off the
difference.
ballot, right?
Maybe. I think that there's an argument. I think there's an argument to vote, like to throw him off the ballot. But I also think it requires a criminal conviction, as you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't think Trump is more popular now than when he was voted out of office in 2020. I think Biden is much less popular now than he was when he was.
Which the net effect is the same, right?
I think so. I'm a guy who's actually like at the polls asking people, "What did you think when you voted for Biden?" Or "What did you think when you voted for Trump?" And the thing I'm hearing regularly is, "I wish I didn't have to vote for either of these two guys."
Well, that's what I'm saying. And the thing is that when you have antipathy and you don't have a whole bunch of people motivated to vote for Biden like they were 4 years ago, the Trump voters are still going to vote for him. You still have motivated Trump voters and less motivated Biden voters.
There are a lot of people who are motivated to vote against Trump, too.
Yeah.
Like anything but that. If Trump was a regular-ass Republican, there would be a lot of Democrats who would just stay home and Trump would win, but he's not.
Yeah.
He's got all this swirling chaos going on.
Right.
And I think they're aware of that. I think Trump knows who he is.